Ben and I kissed earlier already, so we didn't have to do it again.
So you did a man hug.
Yeah. All of the films you saw were produced as student films at UCLA, and it was interesting that Ethan mentioned the Watts riots in '65, because I think if you ask the filmmakers, they will say that there's one reason they ended up at UCLA was because of the Watts riots, because it was the riots and other urban uprisings that led to affirmative action and started the first ever program for minority students at UCLA, and that was back in, I guess, 1969-70. So Ben Caldwell was of that first generation. You got there in the early
71.
71. So he represents that generation.
So you were
And
still a
then
baby.
Jacqueline Frazier came a little bit later.
We're not going to talk about that.
She was still a baby.
Yeah, she was still a baby. She was still a baby. But then she grew up, and later there was a whole generation of women filmmakers that included people like Julie Dash and Jacqueline Frazier and Barbara McCullough and Malvona Ballinger and Stormy Bright Sweet and Alila Sharon Larkin and Carol Parrott Blue, and I'm probably forgetting some, but anyway.
Ofumalayo.
Ofumalayo, who also has a credit on these films.
And Imelda.
Imelda Sheen, yeah.
And one other, who was it?
Belle Francis Young.
Belle Francis Young, who also has a credit here. But anyway, Ben, why don't you talk a bit about how that was when you and Charles Burnett and Larry Clark and Haile Garima, who made the second film, came to UCLA. How did that get started?
This is an interesting way to look, because all I see is shadows. Yeah. But when we first started, I started in '71, and as he said, the environment was really pretty interesting. So it was right after Geronimo Pratt went to prison, after Ronald Reagan caused havoc on campus, and there was images of people getting hit across the head the semester before we got there. Angela Davis was on the run. All of that was the kind of the backdrop that we were going to school at. And there was another element. We had a place called the Gypsy Wagon, which was a North Campus facility now. But at that time, it was really a gypsy wagon that cooked food for us. But we could go there, and we really, really hashed out ideas and concepts, and we became a team of people that worked together. Now, how this all happened was really pretty interesting, because it had a lot to do with the kind of the attitude that UCLA was finding itself out of, because it made everybody ethnographic before that. If they weren't white, you were ethnographic. And so the ethnographic film school died, and we started. And when we started, there was still that element there. So we still felt very much like outsiders. And when that outsider feeling happened, when we met as a group of students, we said, let's surround ourselves with someone who gives us respect and love. And Haile happened to be our TA at that time. He was a TA, and the only black TA that was there. So we all kind of just got around him and said, let's see what we can do collectively. And he showed us his film, and it set a standard, because he had just finished Child of Resistance at that time. So we were like, damn, this is what filmmaking's about. It's real serious. So he set a pace for us. And I think, and then Larry Clark had just finished As Above, So Below. And that was a quite revolutionary film, dealt with a whole group of revolutionaries reacting to a lot of the things that happened with Angela Davis and all of the Black Panthers and the kind of thing that you guys are seeing now with our pedestrian cameras that are shooting a whole lot. We're getting a lot of beautiful breakthroughs of people seeing what we've always said was our problem. You know, that was something we were feeling at the time. And I myself had just come from the military. So I'd just come from Nam, where they had almost killed me. And then just before I went to Nam, I got to run into police brutality in a strong way, because on my way to Nam, I went to visit my girlfriend, and as I was driving along, taking her home, one of the Phoenix police pulled me aside, and I says, "Well, why are you stopping me?" And he pulled back a double-barrel shotgun and says, "Do you have any questions?" Well, like, "No. Let me get out of here, but let me remember this." Anyway, that's the kind of backdrop. I thought I would give you that as a backdrop. That is why we had this kind of a feeling while we were doing these films. We felt very much outsiders.
Yeah, and you're not going to say it, but I will, that extremely threatening to the white professorship at UCLA. So, you know, you had Haile Gerima, who was from Ethiopia, who manages to finish two feature films while he's a student. Jamal Fanaka finishes 3 feature films as a student. You know, Charles Burnett, Billy Woodbury. I mean, you were all very, very strong, and as a result, you know, the professorship had never dealt ever with minorities before. They lived in a white world, and so it was very difficult for them. So.
And it was difficult for us.
Of course.
Walk in there and see a professor sweat, like, "What do you want, Ben? Please leave as soon as you can." Yes, leave.
So after that, they decided they'd bring in African American women who they thought might be more pliable, but they were mistaken. Jackie?
Bad move. Actually, when I was doing my second project, which isn't here, it was me and my girlfriend, Bill Francis Young, piped 9 floors of the Biltmore Hotel with video and audio equipment. We had an editing staff there. We had 9 cameras. And when we presented it and said, you know, we don't really need to do a third project. We have this whole thing. You see it. It's right here. And we even piped them into their hotel rooms. And they said, well, no, we think you should do something else. And then our advisor, who was Shirley Clark at the time, said, I'm so intimidated by these 2 women. Somebody else needs to be their advisor. I gotta go. So that kind of stuff went down. You know, it was a regular thing. Then, you know, it's okay. We just went ahead and kept doing our thing. And I would never have done Shipley Street if I had been out at that point. So that was a good thing for me. And it ended up being a good thing after all. But there were other things, other shows. I actually did another short that was a music video. And the teacher gave me a B+ in the class, and my show was the only one that showed on Theta Cable. But I got a B+. And Val called him, we saw him afterwards, and she said, well, why did she get a B+ in the class? And he said, well, not everybody can get A's. And she said, well, how many people's videos showed on Theta Cable? Hers. So that was the kind of thing, the kind of atmosphere that we were in most of the time.
No matter, Jackie did go on to win an Emmy Award.
Oh, yeah. But that's in sound. Thank you very much. I got that a year and a half ago. Thank you.
So anyway, we've seen a number of films, and it's very metaphoric, allegorical, and then some very neo-realist, like Jackie. So let's open up. I'm sure you have questions about the films or filmmakers, so please. Yes, right up here.
So I know that a few of her pieces are definitely focused
I never saw any of her work. She was just, I was busy making my own film, so I never even concentrated on that. I knew she was like this big, instructor. Everyone was like, But she did actually come to, when we were shooting the Biltmore Hotel thing, and she never came to see us. She was so intimidated that she saw all the equipment that we had, the editing and everything. She left without even saying hello. We found out later that from one of the people that was editing that she had come by. So you can make out of that what you want, but she was very intimidated. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and I want to add that, she wasn't intimidated by black men. She got along well with us.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not gay, and I have nothing against gay people.
Yeah, so I wanted to put that in there because I think there was that type of friction, but for me, I got to work with her quite a few years before her, before you came, and I was in Shirley's first classes, and I stayed there for the whole while. She really helped me a lot, and me and Barbara worked with her too, and Miss Ofumalayo and Denise Bean. We were a group of team of video makers that worked with her on all of her experimental works for almost about 3 years with each other. So with Shirley Clark at the helm.
I think she was intimidated by us because both of us were working at a major studio, and that at the time we were in school. So I think that might have, I was anyway, and Val Francis had come from NBC in Washington, D.C., and I think those things coupled with what we were doing, which was, was enough to say, okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, she also doesn't like commercial work, because the last thing she said to me is that, you're gonna work like Ivan Dixon in Hollywood. So, and I proved her wrong, because I worked in Hollywood. I did do 3 years of internship with Columbia Pictures, but I saw that they didn't think of me very well there, so I didn't know why I should stay there.
Here we go.
Another question?
Nobody?
Nobody have any
Cool.
questions?
No questions?
That's weird. Well, we at UCLA we had that's what kind of started this whole project. In 2011, we did a huge 3-month retrospective, and that program went on tour all over the United States. And in April, it was at London. This year in April it was at the Tate.
At the Tate Modern.
But before the end of the year, we're going to be putting out a 3-disc DVD teaching set, which we will be distributing free of charge to institutions, and we will not be selling it. And that has to do with the fact that a lot of the films, even some of the ones you saw here, this was guerrilla filmmaking. They'd film you guys filmed in the streets of Los Angeles without permits, and then would hightail out as soon as you saw the cops. I
would go to jail for corporal punishment for those kids, beating those kids. I look at the film and I'm like, oh my God, we actually hit these kids, and they're, I'm in trouble. Ugh.
And they didn't clear music rights on most of the music they used. So we tried a little experiment in 11 when we did the program. We put a bunch of the Project Ones. Now, Hiley's film, The Hourglass, that was a Project One, which was the first film they made, and it was mostly shot on Super 8. That's why you saw the splice lines and stuff like that. Whereas the other 3 films you saw were thesis films. That were their final projects, so a little more professional. But anyway, they didn't clear the music rights on most of that stuff. So when we were trying to figure out how we could put a DVD set together, we realized that we had 2 choices. Either we pay $75,000 to $100,000 to lawyers to clear the rights, or we use the grant money we had to pay filmmakers and then distribute it for free without, commercial, any kind of commercial imperative.
Can
And
you
so that's
ask for
what we're doing.
donations for UCLA, the archive?
Oh, we'll always take donations, yeah.
And also my suggestion would be is that you're starting to see these works, so it would really be good to do something similar to what Ethan has done here, is to put together a series, get the works shown, and match it up with this time. That's how they dealt with our work in England. I thought they matched it up with the time period and kind of showed an arc of the engagement of how we worked from then to now, and how that's one continual push that every one of us are still out there doing our work. And so that's something that you could possibly do by with some of our works. I myself, let's see, I have a facility in Lemert Park, and I do
Chaos Network.
It's called Chaos Network, and
Great name.
and so out of chaos has come a lot of harmony. No, but when I started it after teaching at Howard, I came back and thought that I would. Charles Burnett and I wrote a grant to do a film called I Fresh that was a look at hip hop kids, and I wrote it in conjunction with as an artist in the community. So that artist and community grant then lasted 8 years for me, and I was able to kind of do a lot of ethnographic works with modern culture. So what I'm doing now is compilating all of that material, and kind of, you see this Straight Outta Compton coming now. I have a look at these kids that Easy came to one of my places when, to Chaos when I first started, when he was a 13-year-old Yo-Yo, and a lot of these young guys who are now matured hip-hoppers. I worked with them in their early years when they were 13, 14, 15, and I have footage of that. And I do have it contractually written up on this one, so I own the rights to a lot of this. And so what we're doing now is putting together a kind of an arc from '84 to now to show the various types of underground music that I've been fortunate to work with. So that the arc starts with, let's say, the opening when I first started. I had the earlier guys, like I said, Eazy-E and Yo-Yo, and then the mid-stride, about 10 years later, I started working with another group that started with Ava DuVernay, who was a part of the rappers that did. She was a rap group that was called Figures of Speech. She was one of our rappers in Project Blowed album that came out in 1992. And even up to now, we have a group called Bananas that we had, what's this young man's name? Verbs, yeah, Verbs, but we also had, Verbs, and all these guys like Children Under the Stairs, Odd Future, and these new groups that we're working with now. So it's a whole arc, and all these guys are underground, doing real positive work, and that's what I'm proud of. But filmically, that's what the documentary will be about. It's about that arc, and I'm putting that together as we speak.
Anybody else?
Yes.
You mentioned at the beginning that you thought that people had a hard time understanding how to commemorate the loss of a million, and so I just wanted to get both of your perspectives as filmmakers who are looking at this body of work that was made so long ago. Are you still connecting with it in a way? Do you feel like your work is kind of immortalizing this moment in time here in Los Angeles?
Well, mine was very autobiographical with all I went to Catholic school, and they wouldn't play with me and the whole thing. My parents never came to school to help me out, though. It was just like, you're on your own, kid. Nuns are always right. But, that's how they worked. But it was bringing that out, showing how that affected me throughout my whole life of being on the outside, as Ben said. So that definitely is something of course I look at the film and go, oh my God, cut this, it's out of focus here, where's the sound? You know, all those things come to you, because this is what, 30-something years ago? So, so it was a long time, and you can see where you would do different things. But, you know, as a whole, I'm like surprised that anybody wants to see it at this age. I'm like, hallelujah. Thank you guys for coming.
Yeah, for me, I always made it for myself. I made it because my grandfather was a projectionist. I was raised around movie theaters, and talking heads really irritated me. You know, it's just after you've seen a movie for a month over and over and over and over again, it gets kind of really, and so I wanted to, so as soon as I got into film, I really wanted to chuck that whole concept of narrative, but I wanted visual narrative to speak. And so I have fun watching my film until the end. The part that bugs me the most is this, I'm the greatest race of all people, and all that kind of irritates me. But it was the best that I could do with the condensing the idea with no money, with the people and multiple takes and stuff like that. So I ended up living with it because I balanced it out with love at the end. So so it made me feel better in that context. But if there's anything that makes me feel a little itchy, it's that part.
Well, I had a great time out on the streets with the people, and we could see we weren't like in the best neighborhoods filming some of my stuff. And I would tell people that were coming, like everybody wanted to be extras, and I had a whole crew of all different kind of people, from Asians, Hispanic people working with me. And I would have a group of people out there, and they're like, oh God, they'd be like, oh, look at those, some gangbangers over there. They're gonna come over here. They're gonna, So they come over, and I said, you guys want to be in a movie? All of a sudden, they're like, yeah, we want to be in a movie. Yeah, that's cool. So then I'd say, okay, you guys go over there and you do that, you do that, and then I'd say, hey, no, you got to be over here, do that. And people come and they go, oh, you don't want to talk to them like that. They're gangmen. Yeah. Okay, get over here and do that. Whatever I wanted to do, they did. It was an experience that made me go, you know what? If you have a film camera, mostly anywhere in the world, you're golden. Everybody, oh yeah, you could take my picture, you could do that. So that was really fun and interesting to see that, and actually working with the crowds, like the students who I just gave them lines, those people in that school, and they let me in that school. I had no permit. I just said, can I come and film? I'm a Catholic. They said, yeah. They had no idea. They never saw the Pickaninny. None of that. So I was like, okay, thank you. But the kids were great. And you saw those kids. I would say, here, you can do this. And they would come up and do their whole lines, and they were wonderful. I was just very lucky with that. Got lucky. And all the street scenes too, like you said, without the permits. Whoa, we can't do that today in LA. Not much. I guess you could run in and run out a little bit. You got something quick, in case you want to do that.
It's very simple how you do that.
Yeah. Anybody?
Anybody?
How did you so get out at the time? Like, who was the audience for them at the time you made it?
Our community, we showed it a lot. We were fortunate because there were different groups of people moving our films around. So, and what I meant by our communities is like when I first started showing my films, I showed it at the neighborhood film project that they had in Philadelphia. It was handled by Linda Blackaby. She had connections with with New York, and so a lot of the New Yorkers and Bostonians came. So I got my film then to the Flaherty seminars. Then once it was at the Flaherty seminars, then the New York distribution system got involved, and we got into a lot of the schools, and so we could tour like that. And then as that died down, then we had curators like Peter Oliver from Philadelphia. He put together a series of about 5 different sets of film that moved throughout the United States, and we got to talk and go to like Pittsburgh and to Temple University, and then when we went to those places, we would go to all the cultural centers and in those towns and show our films in a very guerrilla way, and then engage the communities and talk about them. And we went from all over the country.
But ironically, the initial reception of a lot of these films was not in this country, it was in Europe.
Yeah.
The Europeans picked up on the new black independent cinema both here and in New York much quicker than anyone did here. They were, Larry Clark was in Cannes, and he won, passing through one in Locarno in '77 already. And Haile Gerima was in Cannes in '77, and then Charles Burnett was in Berlin in '81. And I mean, a lot of the women work was shown. There was a huge program in Paris
In 1980.
I was
in
in that one.
1980, '81.
Yeah.
And so, and from there, it almost came back, and then started. But most of the distribution was non-theatrical. Very, very few of these films ever got commercial distribution,
My film was actually, I threw it in the closet after I finished with it because I was working full time and going to school full time, and I was so tired, and I had no sleep, and it was like having a baby. I don't know, I haven't had one, but it felt like it. And I threw it in the closet. I said, I don't want to see it again. Just give me my diploma. I'm out. And about 6 months later, I got a call from the Hudlin brothers. I don't know if you guys heard of them. They've done a lot of black films, major films. If you look up their names, you'll see them. Reginald Hudlin. They did a lot of stuff with Eddie Murphy. A lot of big movies back in in the 80s and 90s. House Party, Boomerang, all of those. And they distributed my film. They called me up and they said, this was before they were doing all that. And they called me up and they said, we heard you had a film. We want to distribute it. I said, okay. And they did, and it's distributed around the country for 5 or 6 years, and I got paid.
They had an organization called the Black Filmmakers Cooperative.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at
in
that
New
point,
York.
no, at that point they were, maybe at that point they weren't called that. They were just basically those two, and then they started just getting films from all around the country, and they probably later named themselves that. So I was very lucky, very blessed, I say. Anybody else?
Ethan?
I would love to hear more. You mentioned making a music video. It's just the music, like the first film, there's the Don Cherry, I never you made that, but I believe Don Cherry was living lots of the time. But can you just talk about how you both work with composers specifically for your pieces, right?
Yeah, actually Marshall Branch in this film, he died of AIDS about 15 years ago, but he was a brilliant man in every way, and his music, everything. He was a musician, he was a cameraman, he was the best cameraman I've ever seen in my life. He could do studio cameras he could go from a close-up like eye all the way around the room, everything in focus, and come right back to the eye thing and then zoom back out. It was just amazing, and he could do it while he was always doing crossword puzzles and writing music at the same time. He was a brilliant guy. I felt he was a great loss, but yeah, I really related to his music. He just fell right in and just did it the way he only knew he knew how. And I also did a music video with a jazz musician called Billy Harris. And he had a company called As Is Jazz on the West Side. And I just found it. I found it, that video. I thought I didn't have a copy, and I found it, I think it was a year ago?
Yeah.
It was about a year ago. I found it. I thought it was gone. I didn't know what happened. I thought I'd just thrown it away. And then I was concerned because it was so old and it was on VHS that I'm so glad.
No, it was 3/4 inch.
Or 3/4. Oh, it was 3/4.
Yeah.
And I thought, whatever it is, luckily I didn't have a 3/4 inch machine in my house, because what I was told was, after all those years, if you play it once, if you put it in a machine and you play it once, just play it, it'll disintegrate. You'll get one good play, and it's gone forever. And it was the only copy. So I gave it to them, my guardian angels, and they baked it. And I don't know how many days, is it like a 24-hour?
We bake 3/4 inch tapes. You have to bake. You bake them for about 8 to 10 hours at a very low temperature, and whatever it does, it attaches all those electronic ions back onto the magnetic thing for long enough so you can get a good pass. And so we digitized it and cleaned it up.
It's amazing.
And showed it just last March in our Festival of Preservation.
I was so happy. I tell you, that was like a dream come true. I couldn't even believe it. And the fact that if I had not, I didn't even know about the baking thing, and if I had had a machine, once I found it, I would, oh yeah, and then look at that, and here it is, and there would be nothing there. So now I have several copies on DVD. So I'm happy.
Yeah, and my music, I use Paul Starworth, and Paul at that time was doing music for Al Jarreau. He was doing the bass for them. And so I got him to do several passes with his bass, and at the time he was working with, he had worked with Sly Stone, and he was working with the Beatles and all these guys. So I went to, he helped me really mix it in a real strong way. He took his time and really gave me a phenomenal soundtrack with his Wurlitzer. He used the Wurlitzer speaker to play off his bass that made it sound really that kind of flying sound. So that's how I worked with the music.
Yeah. Question back there. Right there.
Can you speak about how your work shown tonight is specific to LA, whether that be, just the urban built environment or the arts community or
You're saying, what does it have to do with LA?
Yeah, I'm not clear on that.
What's specific to LA in the film?
particularly the themes that are explored in your works. And maybe this became more clear to you afterwards, but how it's specific to LA, or maybe it's not, maybe it's more about time. Do you think so?
Yeah, well, for mine, it all took, the whole idea was this kind of the contrast of nature and this superstructural, the superstructures that are downtown of iron and steel and not very much humanity, and then the people that live. So all those shots of those were homeless guys that were shot not too far from here. Then it was called Skid Row. So I shot there because I wanted this. The story was about an African wind goddess coming to the United States to see her people. And so when she went downtown, she wanted to kind of like scan the brains of the folks and what struggles and ideas and feelings you were going through. So I used the imagery to kind of to show that. And so, it had a lot to do with Los Angeles, and it had a lot to do with the kind of alienation that the city does to people.
Well, mine doesn't specifically have to do with LA. It has to do with all black people's experiences all over the country, or maybe possibly all over the world. Racism, discrimination, and something that I was just talking recently to my boyfriend about, which is attractiveness. People will be nicer to you if you're attractive, no matter what color or whatever you are, if you're attractive. So I'm saying to you people that are out there now who kind of want to go into an interview looking like a scrub or whatever you kind of do, don't do it. Try to look your best wherever you're going to give it. I'm serious, because you'll get treated better, you'll get a better reception. People will like. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Welcome to LA. This is it. So you're going to have to try to look your best, and especially if you're anybody of color, male or female, look your best whenever you're trying to get something going for yourself.
It's interesting. Right now we're showing at UCLA in the Billy Wilder Theater, we have a program of New York independent work done around the same time. So Kathy Collins and Spike Lee's first films, and Bill Gunn and Sinclair Bourne and all those people. And I think when I think about the films made in New York and I think about Los Angeles, the big difference for me is that Los Angeles, then as now, is an extremely racially segregated city compared to New York. New York, everyone's on top of each other. So it's a wholly different dynamic. And for me, the films of the LA Rebellion, it really comes through that the fact that the city is racially segregated and those color lines are still there. You know, the law may have changed it, but they're there. They're there.
Actually, I have to say that it's so funny because I have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in Marina del Rey, which I almost didn't get because of the color of my skin, not because I didn't have the money. But I have a roommate, and now he's moving out, and I'd forgotten how hard it has been for me to get a roommate to come in and be there. It's a block from the beach, beautiful room, own bathroom, blah, blah, blah. But when I speak to them on the phone and I say, oh yeah, I have this place, blah, blah, and then I really wish I had a camera to show how the expressions that happen when I open the door and there I am, this black woman, and these guys and women are like, ah! And you can see these expressions, and they're just, it is, and I'm thinking to myself, am I back in the 50s? What is going on? And that is what, it just goes back to what you're saying about the color lines. But I really would like to. I don't know how I could do it. I'd like to maybe have some kind of a hidden camera and just do it. Seriously, it would be a great little short of just people coming to the door and seeing the reaction. You can't make that up. And it's only a one, you only get it that when they open up that door, and then, the whole shades come back up and you're like, okay, everything's fine, So I'm really trying to figure out how to do that.
Then does it matter how well you're dressed?
No, that doesn't help. You're so right. That hasn't helped me so far. Next time I'll dress in a suit.
Yeah,
maybe
because I was going to say, because I thought I was well dressed when I went to be an apartment manager, and I got the job over the phone because of my New Mexico accent. And so I walked up, and then I heard the girl just visibly go, okay, he's here. He's not dressed bad. He looks collegiate, but he's black. And he's all like, you sure I should tell him to go away? Yes.
Well, it's the same thing I had when I was trying to rent apartments here. It was the same kind of a thing when you wanted to rent by the beach, those kind of things. It was like, no. But hey, that's how it is. But I remember I was talking to one of the directors on one of the shows I was working on at NBC, and we were talking, this is when Obama was first getting elected, and one of the organizers came to the door, white organizers came to this place in Texas or somewhere, and he opened the door, and the guy says to the woman, she's there, and he says, well, who are you going to vote for? You're a Democrat. And she says, oh, I don't know, I have to ask my husband. So she says, honey, who are you going to vote? Who are we going to vote for? He goes, that N guy, that N guy, that's what we're voting for. The N word. We're voting for that N guy. And the director is black, and we both cracked up. We thought it was the funniest thing because you know what? That's progress. Seriously, here we are in Texas, and this is where they
He's
lynched
gonna vote for the
N
N
guy, and we're voting for the N guy. Hey, it was good. So we cracked up about it. It was really a change.
Yeah, they've been giving that in guy a ride, huh?
Yeah, he's there. Anything else? Have we bored you yet? Oh.
All the way in the back there, yeah. There's a mic coming, I think.
Yeah, I'll say something real briefly. I sort of came out of the same time period. I was really influenced by students at UCLA at the time I was grad student at Otis. And that era that you're describing, the Watts era, that did the documentary on Watts Festival that actually got me into grad school, documenting that time. But I think that the work that I was aware of Ben's work and probably my colors later on, Judy Dash, and glad to meet Pamela tonight. I want to see for all the young people that are here tonight, that era and that it's still happening. Ben is really one of the great forerunners for bringing young people into the media community. It's an important aspect of what has to continue. That's really what I'm trying to say. Like I said, I was in the video later in the performance art, but this work that we saw tonight, Barbara's piece, really influenced me tremendously along with Ben's about the kind of spiritual things that get left out of who we are and how our presence, that's really what I'm trying to also say, in this society, it is reflected. Not necessarily people are accepting it, it's just this reaction from this whole kind of Confederate flag thing, but the fact that you have as many murders and all these other things, I mean, I would say this again, that we always thought that moment when we were filming, that guy was getting spit on in the coffin. Somehow, all this work stands up. So I guess that's what I'm also trying to say. The relevance of the work. I'm glad it's getting international recognition, and says a lot about the programs here at UCLA. But at the same time, it does have to continue.
Yeah.
And I just want to say congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I have to say something with this relation. You know, the thing that's really important about Los Angeles artist community to me is that, like, as soon as I moved to this town, I got to meet all the painters, dancers, artists that were a part of this whole movement, you know, from John Otterbridge to Horace Tapscott and the Brooklyn Gallery. There's a kind of a mesh that we all had with each other, and it was also with a number of the Latino and Asian friends of ours that really made it possible for us to, this whole thing to happen. And I wanted to say with Ulysses, when I came back from teaching at Howard, he and I shared a studio for a moment, and we worked at a thing called the Electronic Cafe that really placed my head into the Afrofuturistic brain that we were having at that time, which we were interconnecting 5 disparate cultural centers through their coffee shops. And we did a placement there, and Ulysses was really integral in getting me in that set, and I still am. That was one of the more important steps that I took in my life after filmmaking, because it then opened me up to all of what we're doing now with the internet. So we were able to work on the internet in '84 and kind of be some early pioneers with that kind of work in interconnecting communities. So that was my other hat. After I came back here to Los Angeles, I kind of saw this happening that's happening now, the digitizing and all of that, when we were able to send pictures and write telewriting and do all of the laser discs. We put all of these objects into the laser disc, which was before they had DVD. All of that we were kind of playing around with, and saw that that was important with Kit and Sherry. I don't know if any of you guys know them, but they were really 2 important pioneers in the whole idea of how to get visuals into this internet world in an artistic manner.
I wanted to give a shout out to Amy Halpern. She was very involved with all the black filmmakers.
All of us, yeah.
She's never gotten any recognition. She's Jewish. She's a woman. She was a lighting person. She was a camera person for many of these projects. And her works cannot be seen because she's not an African American, and that's something we have to talk about, you know, because I'm like, you know, pro-women here. And I kind of feel like it's not fair, because she was definitely involved with the making of all of these things and has not gotten the credit she deserves. So.
Well, the only thing I would say in that is that she does get to see it, get to show her films in underground white environments.
Yeah, well, I don't know how many there are. They're not being, they're not
Well, I'm
being,
just saying.
well, that's true.
Even though I love Amy. I love
love
Amy a lot because she's helped us a whole lot, but I just want
Yeah.
to contextualize it.
Okay. All right.
Because we've got to have some kind of blackness going or we won't be shown at all, right?
She was there making it.
Yeah, so is several others.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and they're here with us.
Okay.
They are. They're helping me in my studio.
All right. Anybody?
Anybody else?
All right. Ethan, are we done? Thank you very much for coming.
Bye.